Young adults in New York, including those ages 16 and 17 who want to get their driver's license, are encouraged to become an organ donor. Question: does this law, the 2006 Revised Uniform Anatomical Gift Act, make it so that virtually every American is automatically an organ donor? But isn't being an organ donor a good thing? I was going to make a video about this, but then I realized that What's-Her-Face already made an excellent video on this topic. However, she is Canadian. I'm making this video for Americans, particularly American parents with children ages 16 to 30. According to this law, which passed in New York, as well as at least 48 other states, upon registering at the DMV, your verbal decline stating no when asked about whether or not you want to be an organ donor is not honored. According to the law, you must quote-unquote opt out, documenting your refusal in writing using explicit language. Otherwise, it's presumed that you have consented to become an organ donor. So why exactly would you not want to be an organ donor?
The following scenario: your 18-year-old son suffers a severe head injury and is taken to the hospital. Before being formally declared dead, surgeons begin cutting him open and removing his organs for transplant. The Jacobs family didn't have to imagine this nightmarish scenario. It was their reality. In 2009, 18-year-old Gregory Jacobs of Bellevue, Ohio, suffered a closed head injury while snowboarding on a high school-sponsored ski trip in Finley Lake, New York. He was airlifted to Hammett Medical Center in northwestern Pennsylvania, where he died. His parents later filed a lawsuit claiming that doctors caused Gregory's death by administering medication and by removing his breathing tube. The couple also alleged that their son had not been formally declared brain dead when surgeons began the transplant procedure. According to Gregory's mother, Teresa, the records indicated that they started harvesting procedures, including the incision, when he was alive, and he was not even pronounced dead until 29 minutes later. The Jacobs settled the lawsuit against Pennsylvania Hospital for $1.2 million. Now, you may be thinking this is a one-off, but this isn't the only horror story of organ procurement from living donors. Far from it. In 2012, a 19-year-old girl in a coma after a horrific car crash woke up just as doctors were about to declare her brain dead and harvest her organs. In 2016, a teenage victim of a mass shooting in Michigan made a full recovery just as hospital staffers were getting ready to harvest her organs. In 2018, Trenton McKinley woke up from a coma just before organ harvesting. And just this year, a North Carolina pastor narrowly escaped death after his wife stopped doctors from prematurely declaring him brain dead and harvesting his organs. All of these stories have one thing in common: that the patients were incorrectly diagnosed as brain dead before they were prepped for organ transplant surgery. So that begs the question, what exactly is brain death? Where did the concept come from, and why do doctors so often get it wrong? Well, the truth may shock you. Harvesting organs from living patients is illegal under what is known as the dead donor rule. The DDR not only prevents removing livers, lungs, hearts, both kidneys, and the like from living people, but its corollary forbids killing patients for the purpose of obtaining them, even if they consent. This dead donor rule made it difficult for doctors to acquire the oxygen-rich organs they need for transplant. So what they did was redefine death. That's right, back in the 1960s, the medical industry you already trust about as far as you can throw it, invented a brand new and completely pseudoscientific definition of death so they could procure organs from living donors.
Brain death is a lie. It's a lie that's been told over and over again, so people don't even realize it's a lie anymore. But it's been a lie from the beginning, continues to be a lie.
Here are more clips from that interview with the renowned pediatrician, Dr. Paul Byrne.
I started a special care nursery at Cardinal Glenner Children's Hospital in 1963. We were a leader in the field of neonatology. The hospital still is a leader in the field of neonatology. But then I had a baby, Joseph, in 1975, who had flat brain waves and was said to be brain dead. And it was suggested to stop treating him. I said, well, I don't do that. I treat babies, some live, some die, and kept treating him. And he did eventually get off the ventilator, and he went to school and he got straight A's. And played baseball, and he's married, he has 3 children. Because of him, after about 6 months, when he continued to live and was doing much better than anybody would have predicted, I started to investigate brain death. And it took about 2 years till I understood the language of brain death. Brain death is a lie. It's a lie that's been told over and over again, so people don't even realize it's a lie anymore. But it's been a lie from the beginning, continues to be a lie. I published in the medical literature. I have an article in Journal of the American Medical Association. I have an article in the Gonzaga Law Review. It's 85 pages, has 244 footnotes to it. Because of that, eventually I have continued to talk about brain death. Brain death is a lie. I have talked all over the United States. I've talked in many countries, and the truth is easy, and then once you deviate from the truth, then you have first it's false, but then when people become conscious of it's false, then it's a lie. Brain death is a lie. The way it occurred was that Christian Byrne did the first heart transplant in South Africa in 1967. 3 days later, they did the second heart transplant, and you don't know where that is, but I'll tell you. It was done in Brooklyn, New York, and what they did is they cut the beating heart out of a 3-day-old baby and transplanted it into an 18-day-old baby. And at the end of their surgeries, a short time after the end of their surgeries, both of those babies were dead. It was illegal, it was immoral, and so they had to do something to make it legal. And so what they did is they set up a committee at Harvard, and the committee invented brain death. The committee did not do studies on dogs or cats or rats. They didn't collect data on human beings, they just invented brain death. And they had no patient data, they had no basic science studies. And I know it's really awful when you know about it, and it doesn't get better. It keeps getting worse after that. Then a lot of people think that brain death means flat brain waves. They're not even required to do brainwave testing. The way they did that, they studied 9 patients, and 2 of the 9 still had brainwave activity. And then they concluded no longer is it necessary to look at brainwaves, so it's not required to look for brainwave activity. Okay, and consciousness is important, but it's one thing not to demonstrate consciousness, and then we use words like unconscious. But unconscious does not mean that there's no consciousness. It just means that we do not observe consciousness. And there's a difference. Whether a person shows consciousness or not does not indicate whether they're alive or dead.
Gotcha. That's
See,
interesting.
and you use consciousness, and what else did you use?
Pain, that they
Oh,
feel
pain.
pain when,
Yeah,
when they
but see,
take the organs out.
Pain is one of those things that's real, and we should pay attention to it. But pain is the way that the body knows that something's wrong, and it's the way that healing is initiated. Focus on pain. Now, here's what happens. Just because a person can't demonstrate pain doesn't mean they don't have pain. You know, a very good example of that is they give paralyzing agents when they take the organs, so that they don't move and they don't squirm.
So horrible.
And even if they don't move and don't squirm, when they cut on them, their heart rate goes up and their blood pressure goes up, which is the response to pain. But they can't demonstrate that they have pain.
Because they're paralyzed. They've medically paralyzed them.
Yeah.
So they can't respond by...
Right.
Oh, that's horrible. Horrible, horrible.
And it gets really bad if you pay attention to it. What brain death is, it's primarily a way to get organs. The clergy and the people in pastoral care and to get involved. And then in organ transplants, they have a designated requester.
And designated requester is usually a very nice person who dresses nice and befriends the relatives. Can I get you a cup of coffee? Oh, I know this has to be terrible on you. We'll do everything we can to help you. And all of that is part of getting them indoctrinated to get their organs. And see, and you cannot get any organs from a cadaver. Every organ that's transplanted is a healthy organ, and you can only get healthy organs from living persons. You cannot get any organs for transplant from a cadaver.
That's why you don't put it on your license.
And the things I'm telling you is that you are not allowed to hear. And because if you hear it, you will be upset, as all three of you are upset. And rightly so, you should be upset, because whose organs do they want? They want the organs from certainly from all children, but especially the people who are 16 to 30, and their life is in jeopardy. If they're unconscious and on a ventilator, they're going to get their organs, and they do everything to get their organs. And once the organs are taken, you can't bring them back to life. And so what they do is they tell the relatives, well, you know, your daughter Sally would really like to do something good, and this is a way to make something good out of this tragedy, or your son. They have been getting organs from accidents and gunshot wounds. They now get more organs from overdose of drugs than they do from accidents and gunshot wounds combined. In brain death, they do only three things for brain death. One is the patient does not show consciousness. The patient does not have brainstem reflexes that involve the eye or the ear. So there's about 14 brainstem reflexes, but they test only 6. And then the test that they do that is called the apnea test. It's really not a test, it's a procedure. And what they do is take the ventilator away for 10 minutes. And the patient has to demonstrate that they can take a breath in that 10 minutes, or that becomes the signal to cut out their organs. During the time they're off the ventilator, the carbon dioxide builds up, the acids build up. That makes the brain swell worse and makes them get worse. So everybody must learn, do not do an apnea test. You all must learn it now. Know that the overdose of drugs, they need time to heal. The law, it's called the Uniform Anatomical Gift Act. It's already been passed in 47 states, including Ohio. It's a form of slavery. They've made slaves of all of us. It's involuntary servitude, what they've done. The law says, though, if you have signed up to be an organ donor and then you go back to the License Bureau, the law says that's a revocation, but it's not a refusal. You must have a document of refusal. Your wife must get a document of refusal. The last 2 pages can be notarized. The card can't be notarized. If you get sick, you want to get treated. It says, I wish to live the lifespan given by God. Now, the other thing you need to know is you must have a power of attorney. Power of attorney, in here we give you a power of attorney for health care. I'm not an attorney, but we tell you the language of what has to happen to protect and preserve your life. You should designate your wife to speak for you, but she should only be able to protect and preserve your life. So many of the powers of attorney are set up under certain conditions. The power of attorney can kill you. I always tell people, make sure you give the power of attorney to someone who loves you, not someone who would love to get rid of you. Yeah. And at least I'm sure that my wife probably wanted to more than once.